The evening skyline of London shimmered like a crown of golden lights, reflecting the dazzling success Marcus Whitfield had achieved. Yet, inside his glass-walled office, the enigmatic CEO stared out with a quiet intensity, his storm-gray eyes betraying the emptiness lurking beneath his power. At 38, Marcus was the epitome of success, charismatic, brilliant, and ruthless. But behind his steel-gray eyes lay a void, one that no amount of power or wealth could fill. Across the Atlantic, Elena Hart, a renowned corporate lawyer in New York, prepared for a different kind of battle. 5 years ago, she had walked away from Marcus, leaving behind the dreams they once shared. But she didn't leave alone. She carried a secret, one she had guarded fiercely, a truth that would soon upend both their lives. But now she was returning to London, not for revenge, but for justice. And by her side stood Alexander, the son Marcus never knew, ready to face the father who had once turned his back on love. Marcus Whitfield had become a symbol of untouchable success. Born into a middle-class family in the outskirts of Manchester, he had single-handedly built Whitfield Technologies into a global tech empire, with branches spanning Europe and Asia. Known for his sharp instincts, unparalleled negotiation skills, and ruthless decision-making, Marcus saw power not just as a goal, but as the ultimate measure of worth. But Elena Hart had seen another side of him, a man driven by ambition yet deeply vulnerable. They met at an international law conference in New York. Marcus was captivated by Elena's intelligence and integrity, while she was drawn to his confidence and piercing insight. Their romance was a fusion of intellect and passion, but it was also fraught with challenges. Everything changed when Elena revealed she was pregnant. At the time, Marcus was deep in negotiations to acquire a major tech firm, and his response was far from what she had hoped. To him, the child wasn't a joy, but a complication that could jeopardize his reputation and the company's future. Marcus asked Elena to consider an abortion, calling it the most practical solution to safeguard their future. Devastated, Elena refused. She couldn't sacrifice her child for Marcus's ambition. Heartbroken and disillusioned, she left London, choosing to start anew in New York, where she built a thriving career and raised Alexander with boundless love. Over the next 5 years, Marcus continued to climb the ladder of power, but a void lingered within him. He never spoke of Elena, but the memories of their time together and the choices he had made haunted him in quiet moments amidst the grandeur of the empire he had built. The annual Whitfield Technologies Charity Gala was one of London's most prestigious events. Held at the iconic History Museum, the glittering chandeliers reflected off elegant gowns and tailored suits. Marcus Whitfield, clad in a perfectly tailored dark suit, moved through the room with his usual composed demeanor, his sharp gaze catching every detail of the evening. But tonight was different. As Marcus conversed with business partners, a ripple of whispers spread through the grand hall. All eyes turned toward the entrance, where a woman in a striking crimson dress made her entrance. It was Elena Hart. Elena walked with confident grace, a faint smile on her lips, but her eyes carried the determination of someone preparing for battle. Her hand held tightly onto Alexander's, a boy of about 5, dressed impeccably in a tiny tuxedo. Marcus's world tilted as his gaze locked onto the boy's storm-gray eyes, eyes that mirrored his own. Time seemed to stop for Marcus. He couldn't look away. Elena had returned, not alone, but with the son he never knew he had. Elena wasted no time. As their eyes met, she tilted her head in a polite nod before walking straight toward him. "Marcus," she said, her voice calm yet laced with challenge, "I think it's time we talked." "The boy, Marcus began, but the words faltered. "At Alexander Whitfield," Elena stated firmly, "your son. And I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to make sure you take responsibility for the choices you've made." Before Marcus could respond, Elena turned and walked away, leaving him in stunned silence. Alexander glanced up at Marcus curiously before following his mother. Later that night, standing in his glass-walled office overlooking the city, Marcus realized his life was about to change forever. Marcus sat alone in his towering office, the lights of London flickering beneath him. His mind was a whirlwind. The image of Elena and Alexander haunted him, the boy's storm-gray eyes piercing through every layer of armor Marcus had built around himself. The next morning, Marcus received a package from Elena. Inside was a thick report detailing every unethical action Whitfield Technologies had undertaken over the past 5 years, displacing communities for factory expansions, dubious offshore accounts, and more. But what stunned Marcus wasn't the violations he already suspected, it was the accompanying reform plan. Elena hadn't just exposed the company's flaws, she had provided a way forward. The plan included establishing an independent ethics division, implementing community support programs, and committing to full financial transparency. Their meeting the following day was brief but powerful. Elena entered the conference room with her characteristic confidence. "I'm not here to destroy you, Marcus," she began. "I'm here to offer you a chance." Marcus wrestled with himself. He knew that agreeing to this plan would mean facing stock declines, legal investigations, and shareholder backlash. But for the first time in his life, he realized that power and profit could never fill the emptiness inside him. "What do you think?" Elena asked, her sharp eyes searching his face for a sign of resolve. Marcus placed his hand on the document, his gaze conflicted. "If I agree to this, I lose everything I've built." "No," Elena replied, her voice soft but firm. "You'll lose what wasn't worth keeping, but you'll gain a family, honor, and perhaps yourself." Marcus stared at her in silence, feeling the weight of her words. As she left the room, he knew he had to make a decision, not just for the company, but for his life. That night, for the first time in years, Marcus didn't review financial reports or major projects. Instead, he gazed at the sky through his window, wondering if he could start over, not as a businessman, but as a father and a man worthy of the love he had once lost. Marcus sat in the largest boardroom of Whitfield Technologies, facing the company's leadership. In front of him lay Elena's comprehensive restructuring plan. The room was tense as Marcus began to speak. "For the past 5 years, we've traded ethics for profit," Marcus said, his voice low but firm. "We've caused harm to communities, to the environment, and to the people who trusted us. Today, we have a chance to make things right." The board was silent. A few members voiced opposition, but most recognized that there was no other choice. Eventually, they agreed to Elena's plan. Marcus stepped out of the boardroom with a mix of relief and apprehension. Elena's reform plan had been approved, but a more challenging journey awaited him, the journey to regain his family's trust. Marcus stepped into Elena's apartment for the first time since she had returned to London. The space was warm and inviting, with children's drawings pinned to the walls and neatly stacked toy blocks on the shelves. Alexander was sitting on the floor, intently assembling a model spacecraft. "Hi, buddy," Marcus said softly, his tone far gentler than the commanding voice he usually carried. Alexander looked up, his storm-gray eyes filled with curiosity. "Do you know how to build a spaceship?" Marcus sat down beside him, shedding his suit jacket and rolling up his sleeves. "I'm not as good as you, but I'm ready to learn." The two worked side by side, with Alexander carefully explaining each step. Marcus felt a quiet joy, a sense of connection he hadn't experienced in years. "Why weren't you here before?" Alexander asked suddenly, his innocent eyes locking onto Marcus's. The question hit Marcus like a bolt, but he took a deep breath before replying. "I made mistakes, Alexander. I thought work was more important, and I didn't realize what really mattered until now. But I promise, I won't miss any more moments with you." That evening, Marcus picked up Alexander after school to fulfill his promise of taking the boy to the Whitfield Tower Observatory. For the first time, he felt awkward, like a father in training. "You really like Jupiter, don't you?" Marcus asked as they stepped into the elevator. Alexander nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, because it's the biggest planet and has the most moons. But you know, not all moons are easy to see. You need a telescope." The boy's innocent words stopped Marcus in his tracks. He realized that, like Jupiter and its moons, some connections weren't immediately visible, but with a little effort, he could discover and understand more about his son. As Alexander eagerly explained how to adjust the telescope, Marcus listened intently, not just to learn about the universe, but to understand his son's world. "You're really good at this," Marcus said, feeling a genuine pride he hadn't experienced before. "Who do you think I take after?" Alexander asked, his storm gray eyes gleaming under the lights. "Both your mom and me," Marcus replied softly, "but you're far better than I ever was. You've already taught me so much, Alexander." In the weeks that followed, Marcus made an effort to integrate into Alexander's life, picking him up from school, attending his soccer games, and reading bedtime stories alongside Elena. Each moment was a small but meaningful step toward rebuilding the family he had missed. Marcus's efforts gradually began to show. He and Alexander spent evenings building planetary models with Legos or reading articles about space. Elena, while still keeping a cautious distance, began to see that Marcus was truly committed to change. One evening, as the three of them sat together under the warm light of the living room, Marcus said unexpectedly, "Elena, I know I can't undo the past, but if I could, I'd change everything. I want us to be a real family, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." Elena looked at Marcus, her gaze softening slightly. "You're on the right path, Marcus. But remember, love isn't something you win, it's something you build, one day at a time." Marcus nodded. He knew winning Elena's heart would take time and effort, but for the first time in his life, he felt ready to rise to the challenge, for her and for Alexander. One evening, after Alexander had gone to bed, Marcus found Elena in the living room. She was reading, her demeanor calm but her gaze distant. "Elena," he began, his voice sincere, "thank you for not giving up on me completely. You didn't have to give me another chance, but you did, and I didn't deserve it." Elena looked up, her sharp eyes scrutinizing him. "You've figured that out now? The Marcus I knew 5 years ago never admitted he was wrong." Marcus nodded, guilt etched on his face. "I've lost too much to realize that love and family are what truly matter. I don't want to just be a father on the sidelines, and I don't want to let you down again." Elena was silent for a long moment. "Marcus, change takes time. It's not just about wanting to change. You have to prove it. Not to me, but to Alexander." Marcus nodded. "I will. You may not believe me now, but I'll show you." On a crisp spring morning, Marcus and Alexander walked into the headquarters of Whitfield Technologies. Today wasn't a typical workday. They were here to attend the grand opening of a new community support center, a centerpiece of the restructuring plan Marcus had implemented over the past year. Alexander, dressed in a tiny suit, held his father's hand, his eyes wide with excitement as he spotted the red ribbon stretched across the entrance. Elena was already there, mingling with board members and representatives from nonprofit organizations. When she saw Marcus and Alexander approaching, she smiled softly. "Dad, can I cut the ribbon?" Alexander asked, his voice brimming with excitement. "That's your job," Marcus replied, ruffling the boy's hair. "You're the reason we're here." The ceremony began, with Marcus stepping up to the podium. Behind him stood Elena, who had helped him reshape the entire corporation, and Alexander, who had become the center of every decision he made. "Today, we're not just opening a community support center," Marcus said, his voice resonating with emotion. "We're opening a new chapter for Whitfield Technologies, a chapter built on responsibility, transparency, and compassion. This isn't just a corporate commitment, it's a personal one, to our community and to my family." Marcus knelt so Alexander could step up to the podium. Amid applause, the boy cut the ribbon, his face lit with pure joy. Elena watched the scene, feeling a deep sense of pride and a quiet peace in her heart. After the ceremony, the three of them strolled through a nearby park. Alexander ran ahead, hopping over puddles and pointing to the sky, explaining constellations even though the sun was still shining. Marcus and Elena walked side by side in silence, until Marcus finally spoke. "I know this path won't be easy," Marcus said, his voice steady and sincere, "but I want you to know that I'll never go back to who I was. You and Alexander have changed me forever." Elena stopped and turned to him. "Marcus, change is never just a moment, it's a journey. But I've seen how far you've come, and I believe you'll keep going." "I will," Marcus replied, "not just for you and Alexander, but because I want to be someone you both can be proud of." Elena smiled, a gentle, hopeful smile. "Then let's continue this journey together, one step at a time." That evening, the three of them sat on Elena's balcony. Alexander held a telescope, pointing out stars. "Mom, Dad, can we do this every night?" Marcus looked at Elena, then at Alexander. "We can, son, and we will." The night sky sparkled with stars, but for them, the warm glow of love and hope shone brightest of all. On a clear, sunny day, Marcus drove Elena and Alexander to the beach, a place they had never visited together as a family. The waves lapped gently against the white sand, creating a serene and romantic backdrop. "Dad, can we build a giant sand castle?" Alexander exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Of course," Marcus replied with a soft chuckle. "But only if you promise not to flood the castle with seawater." Elena smiled from the back seat, feeling the warmth of the moment. Since Marcus's transformation, days like this had become a cherished part of their lives. As Alexander dashed ahead with his plastic shovel, Marcus quietly took Elena's hand, leading her for a stroll along the shore. "I have a little surprise for tonight," he said, his deep voice laced with intrigue. "A surprise?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "I hope it doesn't involve sandcastles." Marcus chuckled. "No, I think you'll like this one." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of red and gold, Marcus led Elena and Alexander to a secluded corner of the beach. Under the soft glow of lanterns strung around a table, Elena saw the carefully crafted scene before her. The table was draped in white cloth adorned with red rose petals and flickering candles. The gentle sound of the waves and the warm glow of the lights created a setting that was both romantic and intimate. "Wow, what's this, Dad?" Alexander asked, his eyes wide with wonder. "This is a special dinner for our family," Marcus replied, glancing at Elena with a meaningful look. They sat down together, enjoying a meal thoughtfully prepared for the occasion. Even Alexander, though young, sensed the significance of the moment and quietly savored his small pizza. As dinner came to a close, Marcus stood, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. He dropped to one knee in front of Elena, his eyes filled with sincerity and deep love. "Elena, years ago I made mistakes and lost the most important thing in my life, you. But since you've come back, I've realized that family is what I've always longed for. You've given me a chance to start over, and I don't want to waste another moment." He opened the box, revealing a simple yet elegant ring with a diamond that sparkled in the candlelight. "Elena, will you marry me again and build a brighter future with me for our family?" Tears glistened in Elena's eyes as she nodded softly. "Yes, Marcus, I will." Alexander let out a cheer, leaping up and running to hug them both. "So, we're a real family now, right?" "Yes, son," Marcus said, wrapping his arms around both Elena and Alexander. Under the star-filled sky, their family found not just love, but also peace and hope for the future.